In my climate change post on Garden Mess, I made the comment that global deaths are actually decreasing due to extreme temperatures. Now, a lot of people commented on that and said, that's not right. You've got your facts wrong. And they referenced comments like this from the World Health Organization. Climate change is the biggest global health threat in the 21st century. 37% of the heat-related deaths are attributed to climate change. Is that really true? Let's have a look at the facts. There have been a number of studies on this, including one recently that had 68 scientists working on the project from 33 different countries from around the world collecting data. What they found was that globally, there are 9 times more death from cold than from heat. 9 times. In fact, there was no region in the world where the ratio was less than 3, and many times it was more than 10. Cold is more deadly than heat, even in the hottest parts of the world. Now, there have been a number of other studies which came up with similar results. A study that looked at 854 cities in Europe found that cold-related deaths were about 10 times higher than heat-related ones. A detailed study across England and Wales found that cold-related deaths were 2 orders of magnitude higher. A similar study in China found the same results. And in the US, there's also been a study and they found the same result. Now, it is important to note that these deaths from cold are from moderate cold. These aren't extreme conditions. It's not like people are going out for a walk on a really cold day and freezing to death. The effects of cold are cumulative, and I'll have a look at that in more detail in a minute. Now, not everyone agrees with this data, although most scientists seem to agree. The problem is that death certificates rarely say death from heat or death from cold. So we die from other reasons, and the researchers have to interpret those reasons and determine what was the original cause. So there is some ambiguity here. Now, what's interesting is that NOAA in the US looked at this data and concluded there are more deaths from heat. They're the outlier. They don't seem to have a lot of support for that conclusion. And it's been my experience that whenever they're looking at data, they're very biased towards the heating effect of global change. The CDC in the US looked at the same data and they concluded that there are far more deaths due to cold, and that seems to be the global consensus. The details of this discussion can be found in an article called "Which Kills More People, Extreme Heat or Extreme Cold?" Whenever I'm looking up information and reporting it to you, I always include the references. But references are very hard to present in the video format. So if you're interested in looking up the original studies, go to my Substack article, and the links are all there for you to look at. The evidence is pretty clear. Cold kills more people. But what is going to happen as we move ahead and global warming continues and we get warmer and warmer? How does that change the projection? A regular cited study by Zao and his colleagues looked at the temperature-related deaths from the year 2000 to 2019, and they found heat-related deaths increased as temperatures increased, but the number of cold-related deaths decreased. In total, the annual temperature-related deaths have fallen 650,000 per year. What that means is that in almost a 20-year period, 650,000 fewer people have died due to global warming. It's clear that global warming is reducing deaths. Now, as we get warmer and warmer, that picture will change. The number of deaths from extreme warm temperatures is going to keep climbing, and the deaths saved by cold temperatures will decrease. But at some point, we will get so hot that a lot of people will die from heat. Global warming is reducing death, but the effect of this is not the same everywhere. Countries in a colder climate are seeing more benefits from global warming than countries that have a high temperature to start with. Scientists have tried to predict what this will look like, and they've developed a global map for 2030. And they estimated the number of deaths per country. What you see on this map is that most of the cold countries are still benefiting. The blue color on this map indicates that fewer and fewer people are dying from temperature extreme. Red areas, on the other hand, is the opposite. The number of people dying from temperature extremes is going up. But when we have a look at this global map, we see that most countries are benefiting or are neutral. There's only a few countries that will actually see an increase in death due to temperature extremes by the year 2030. As the temperatures keep rising, we will reach a point where more people die from heat than cold on a global basis, and scientists have estimated that that point will be reached when our temperature increases 3 degrees centigrade. That won't happen until the end of the century. Now let's look at some of the actual numbers. It turns out that globally, about 5 million people die each year from temperature extreme. I found that number to be really large. Approximately 4.6 million die from cold, and the other 500,000 die from heat. As I mentioned before, these deaths aren't usually registered on the death certificate as heat or cold. They're usually registered as cardiovascular problem or respiratory diseases. And that's why the interpretation of the data is a bit tricky. The other thing that we can note is that heat tends to kill very quickly in a couple days, whereas cold is a slow killer. So you generally die over weeks and months because of exposure to cold conditions. Now, every time there's a heat wave, the news gets in on the action. The temperature's going to be so hot tomorrow. And then they report, well, yesterday was really hot. We hit record temperatures and 12 people died from the heat. Climate alarmists are warning you with headlines. This is an existential threat that must be taken care of immediately. They never mention the people that were saved because of the warmth. It's time we stop believing the fearmongers and go with reality. Thank you for watching. You can find Reality Time on YouTube, Substack, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'll put links to these and our social pages in the description below. If you're interested in gardening, check out my YouTube channel called Garden Fundamentals or my blog called Garden Myths. Let the truth shine into your life.